As many of you know, I love my Necrons. There is so much personality to them, but they also have a darker side. Since the days of biotransference, there are some who are disgusted by their metal bodies, and others who relish the newfound power and turn further away from who they once were. One group that believes heavily in this are the Necron Destroyer cults, and they are both awesome and frightening. So today, we will go through what makes them tick, and also go through the various types of destroyers that we can see in Warhammer 40k. Initially, I wanted to make this a shorter and quicker video because I haven't uploaded in a while, but as always, it very easily spirals into pages of info, and it makes me want to read through old codexes and articles, and I won't lie, it does make my video process a lot more time consuming, but for me, that's just part of the fun and enjoyment. I just really like the idea of researching Warhammer, and it makes me so much more excited to do it, and I think that that's also one aspect of the hobby I think is very underrated. Just figuring out all of the lore and trying to wrap your head around it can also be fun in its own way, because I don't need sleep. I need answers. But before we get stuck into the Destroyer cults, I have to hit you guys with a quote, and I cannot do this without putting on the Necron's voice from the Audible version of the Twice Dead King series. I just love that series way too much to do it in any other voice. The Destroyers. They are weapons, nothing more, and should be expended as such. They are Necron in form only, having been reborn to a madness deeper than any other to which I have borne witness. Whilst I hold nothing but approval for their drive and efficiency, I can present no logic adequate to justify their ultimate goal. A warrior's proper function is to fight for a profound objective, to leave behind works or deeds greater than himself. Given free rein, the destroyers would leave behind nothing, not life, nor art, nor glory. Only dust would remain. I am a soulless machine, yet even I feel pity for their victims. Zarek, last of the Silent Kings. Since their great sleep for millions of years, there has been more than enough time for all kinds of crazy things to happen to the Necrons. While only a fraction of worlds have reawoken so far, we have seen many different forms of degradation, and even the Flayer virus affecting them. The Destroyer cults are another form of change that can affect all kinds of Necrons across the stars, making them into frightening monsters of who they once were, but are still able to be used in the great wars that take place in the Warhammer universe. The Destroyer cults are a gathering of Necrons who have decided to embrace the machine utterly, modifying their bodies and minds to become little more than weapons to destroy all life. Every other Necron is wary of these destroyers, and they try to keep their distance out of fear that whatever madness has infected their minds is somehow contagious. But how do they form? What causes this to occur to Necrons? Well, not all Necrons awoke from the Great Sleep as intended. Some suffered physical damage, usually due to faulty stasis crypts that brought on a slow decay that rotted away at their mechanical body and eroded their engramic pathways. Others became infected by the Flayer virus and devolved into creatures whose reason is taken over by a desire to taste and embrace flesh again. Yet, there are also those Necrons who have awoken from slumber with their physical form intact, but their psyche has been torn beyond recovery. Angered and despairing of their soulless existence, those Necrons have turned to nihilism. They no longer seek redemption or to regain a mortal physical body. They only wish to just kill all living things and bring them into death's embrace. These are the Destroyers, the self-appointed heralds of oblivion. This is interesting because it can become quite philosophical, and I know that this is a tangent, but I feel like it is important to at least explain what nihilism is, because it has stated in multiple versions of the Necron Codex over the years that Destroyers have turned to nihilism. Nihilism is the belief in nothing, that life is meaningless. This can be easily confused with being negative or depressed. From my understanding, it's slightly different. Nihilism is a rejection of all things and that nothing matters. The glass isn't half full or half empty. You throw the glass away because it doesn't matter. Necron Destroyers fundamentally reject life and morals because they deem it to be useless in the end. And surprisingly, they kinda stick to this idea because they kill everything and they don't listen to orders. Destroyers are deranged agents of annihilation whose sole reason for existence is centered around an unshakable yearning to destroy life. A destroyer does not care about borders or allegiances, even if someone is innocent. To them, all forms of life are an enemy, and therefore, all living creatures are their prey. They ruthlessly adapt, augment, or expunge any facet of their physical form if it's going to improve their mission of slaughter. Many weapons will be fused into their arms, such as Gorse cannons or hyperphase blades. Even their sensors are reconfigured to better serve target lock and predicting movement, at the cost of whatever remnants of emotions they had. It is unclear what brings about this desire to so heavily modify their bodies, but older codexes up to 8th edition suggest it may be a subconscious imperative that was brought about during biotransference. So it's unclear if Destroyers came about by design or if this is an unexpected complication of the Great Sleep. We haven't seen Destroyer lore be readdressed in 9th or 10th edition codexes, but their lore has been pretty consistent around the whole time, so I find it unlikely that we're going to see a significant change. Most Destroyers are banished to the outskirts of a tomb world in isolated fortresses. This is so that they can be useful in a battle, but it still gives a Necron overlord some space to avoid any issues, as they can be very aggressive and often do not respond to commands unless it involves killing things. They are able to be led by Destroyer Lords, which are able to retain far more intelligence and can use this to frightening efficiency, setting up traps and even keeping prisoners. Destroyer Lords are formidable in combat, with physical strength equaling that of an Overlord, and they have the drive that just their mere presence is able to rouse other destroyers to achieve greater acts of carnage. A destroyer's chilling dedication to destroying and killing everything is a very valuable addition to any Necron army. Surprise, surprise, having psychopaths on your front line can be pretty good. Despite their habit of insubordination, their raw power and ability on a battlefield more than compensates for any issues in the chain of command. In fact, there are many successful Nemesaurs, basically a Necron general, that simply give destroyer cults free reign, and then they plan the rest of their army around the destroyer cult, rather than trying to have them stick to orders or trying to control them. So now that you know about what a destroyer is and what their beliefs are, let's go through the different types of destroyers that we see. The classic destroyer is a heavily modified immortal or Lich Guard that has swapped their legs for a repulsor platform. That's right, we have a Necron with a dump truck. But don't let its big ass fool you. They are surprisingly mobile weapons platforms that have tons of firepower, with one arm being modified into a Gorse cannon. This Gorse cannon is capable of devastating light infantry columns and can even reliably damage light armored vehicles. I have to do another little side tangent here for a moment because Necron Gorse weapons are really cool. They are extremely deadly because unlike normal energy weapons, a Gorse weapon does not deliver a beam of particles or a bolt of electromagnetic force. Instead, it emits a molecular disassembling beam capable of reducing flesh, armor, and bone to their constituent atoms. It basically turns everything it shoots into dust. And this is one of the reasons why, in the lore, Necrons are a hard counter to the Tyranids. They get no biomass from Necrons, which can just reanimate to get back up, and whatever they kill can't be recycled by the Tyranids later on. And it also means that, in the lore, their weapons will disintegrate almost every enemy into dust with frightening power and a huge psychological effect. In the book Dead Men Walking, which is a fight between the death corpse of Krieg and a awakening Necron tomb world, the elite Krieg infantry called Grenadiers that have the really cool skull masks and carry melter guns, these guys, these elite Kriegsmen, have to toss their guns up in the air when they're about to die so that the weapon doesn't get disintegrated. They had to do this because otherwise they would lose some of the only useful guns against the Necrons, and I find that very scary and interesting at the same time. Now, I'm going to sound like an infomercial guy, because wait, there's more. We can't talk about destroyers without mentioning Necron heavy destroyers. These guys saw the normal destroyers and they just said, more. Necron heavy destroyers are a heavier, see what they did there? Fire support variant of the standard Necron destroyer. These guys can mount a Gorse Destructor or an Enmitic Exterminator into its hands, and it's just fused to the gun, so they added an extra arm as well, which I just love. And let me say, oh boy, do they go hard. These guys have unbelievable firepower, and on the tabletop, oh they fuck. Oh boy, do they fuck. Destroyer Lords are another variant, and They can vary, but to my knowledge, most of these are the standard Destroyer design or the Scorpec design. It's pretty open to whatever, because the whole thing about Destroyer cults is that they go heavy on the modifications, so we may even see more variations of Destroyers as time goes on. The Hexmark Destroyer is a death mark who has fallen to the Destroyer curse and wants nothing other than to kill absolutely everything around it. While other destroyers fly around with massive cannons or scuttle forward with phase blades, the Hexmark Destroyer takes the Deathmark's love for surprise attacks to an epic level. They burst from pocket dimensions just like how Deathmarks do, and dispatch all nearby enemies in a hail of enmitic disintegrator fire. These guys are really cool. They have amazing rules on the tabletop, and they kind of just become the fastest hand in the West. Like, there's a rule that lets Hexmark Destroyers shoot for free when an enemy unit comes near them, and they can also shoot when a friendly unit close to them gets shot. So I like them a lot, and I think that they're pretty underrated. I definitely need a couple more for my army. Next up, we have the Scorpec Destroyers. These guys are a more recent addition, but just imagine a Necron warrior that went through the Pack-a-Punch machine from COD Zombies. These guys have the same base head and torso as a Necron warrior, but everything else is just pure nightmare fuel. They have 3 spider legs and Necron phase blades fused into their arms. They are bigger, meaner, and while they don't have an extra hand to hold a glass of juice, they can definitely chop a Space Marine into tiny little bite-sized pieces. They also have a separate model for the Scorpec Lord, and oh damn, he is a big boy. I just love the look of this model. He is really powerful. There was a Warhammer animation about a Deathwatch kill team fighting one, and of course the Space Marines have to win, but it was still really awesome, and it's definitely worth checking out. The last variant that we have to cover are the Ophidian Destroyers, and they're very similar to Scorpec Destroyers, but instead of the spider body, they have a style which is more similar to the old school Necron Wraiths. They have more of a snake-like body, and with advanced Necron tech, they are able to tunnel underneath and through their own pocket dimension. By moving through solid objects with dimensional displacement, they can burst out of nowhere like the Kool-Aid Man, and then ambush, hack, and slash their enemies to pieces. They're not as good on the tabletop right now, but who knows, with the rate of change in 10th edition, that they might actually see a glow up later on, but I guess we'll see how that goes. So that pretty much covers Necron Destroyer cults, and I think they're really interesting, and more of a return to the older lore about Necrons being like Terminators and wanting to destroy all life. We might see more of them in the Twice Dead King series, so fingers and toes crossed that that will happen soon, but I hope that you all enjoyed today's video. As always, I appreciate all of your support, and I will do my best to stay regular with uploads this year, so please give me lots of extra motivation to make sure that happens by liking, commenting, and subscribing if you want to see more. So that's about it for today, guys. I hope you enjoy the video, and I've been Kiv, and I will see you all on the next one.